finding that every year, every quarter, there seems to be more and more interest in this topic of succession planning. And I think part of it is because the baby boom generation, which is now nearing or at retirement, was an amazing entrepreneurial generation. And I certainly was the beneficiary of that myself. And part of it was because we grew up in families that were highly entrepreneurial. The post-World War II generation was very much involved in small business, and they raised a group of children who then grabbed the love for that. And many of us went into corporate America and got experience in grounding there, and then came, are we okay? Go ahead.
I just have to put this over here.
Oh.
I told you these.
Okay. And many of us then grabbed the dream and grabbed the love and continued on in our passions. We got experience in corporate America, we went to school, and then went on to build our own businesses. And for me personally, I found that after coming out of corporate and starting my own business, that it became an opportunity to take care of my family, to provide an income, to give me good work to do that I could be passionate about, to give me an opportunity to meet people, my employees, my vendors, my clients, who I might not otherwise have met in the normal course of my life, who've greatly enriched me and who I hope we've added a lot to their lives as well. And now, baby boomers, it's time to start thinking about moving on. And as we think about moving on, it's important to look at the definition of what succession planning is, which is ensuring that the business has opportunity to continue as a viable entity when the current leaders move out of the way. And so what we're going to talk about today is the foundation. How do you build the foundation? What is succession planning? But then also, how do you move out of the way? Because that is such a critical topic. So I'm going to give you some historical perspective, and then we're going to move right on to the panel. In terms of the historical perspective, the ways that business owners move out of their businesses is not shifting that much, but the perspectives on it are. So historically, when you would ask business owners what did they expect to do with their business, it was about a 50-50 mix. Give it to the family, or move it on to someone in the family, or sell it to outsiders. And while that was the thought process, even as recently as 5 or 10 years ago, the numbers in terms of outcomes were actually very different. So about 15% of businesses actually got to generation 2, and another 5% actually made it to generation 3. So while 50% thought they were going to get the family engaged, didn't happen so much. When you talk to the family members, however, there's also now today a very different perspective. So one survey that was done recently, 82% of the family members said they just wanted the money. Only 12% wanted the business. And I think that that's a very, very cautionary tale. Historically, in terms of the 50% of the others, 10% of business owners traditionally have anticipated that they would sell to a competitor, and that actually still continues to happen at the 10% rate. 10% of business owners expect that they will sell it to outsiders. That number actually happens and has been happening historically. Another 30% of business owners said that they plan to sell it to their employees. Here's another disconnect number. Only about 5% of businesses actually get there. So there's some gaps in terms of intention and outcomes, and the whole in that difference between intentions and outcomes is that typically about 40% of businesses close or liquidate. So they don't actually monetize the business at the end of the game. And that is starting to reduce. It's starting to drop down more into the 20% range, are closing and liquidating now. I think that's good news. I think we have to be careful because it is also an economic number. So if the economy is creating more opportunities for the business to close and liquidate, the economy's in good shape, that's more likely to happen. But at present, one of the things that we all have to think about as we're thinking about exiting is that 58% of the sellers are baby boomers, where they were born between 1946, 1964. That means they're between ages 54 and 72.
they're running out of or running up against a time wall. And of those people, they have to think about what they're going to do next. 48% say they're going to retire. 25% intend to focus on another venture. And then there's a gap that isn't really talking about what their intentions are. For those who are planning to sell, 20 to 30% of businesses that go to market actually sell right now. That's an EPI, State Planning Institute number, and it's also backed up by Biz Buy Sell. And so what that really means is that about 1 in 5 businesses that is attempting to sell actually gets it across the line. And one thing you got to be really careful about is there's intention, I want to sell the business, and then there's actually being able to execute the transition. Factors that impact those low conclusion numbers, 1 in 5 coming across the line. 75% of business owners say that they think they can get the deal done in less than a year. We're going to talk about that on the panel. 58% never had their business appraised, so they have unrealistic expectations or no clear understanding what the business is worth. And 48% of them have no clearly articulated exit strategy or documentation to support what they're attempting to do. On top of that, 37%, once they get the deal done, 37% of business owners have no structures to actually shield the proceeds from the sale once they get the sale done. And that's a real problem as well. In terms of a Gallup Small Business Index survey, 70% of small business owners do not have a formal written plan. Again, the same thing I was talking about before, supporting an exit is one thing. Having a plan that you can show, I've done this, I've done that, we plan to do this, we plan to do that. That's what a business owner or a buyer wants, is to prove that you can do what you can say and the business can continue on. Other considerations, while most business owners, their single biggest asset is their business. The other one is the house. The business has greater opportunity to appreciate and value, but often does not get realized for that. In addition, 40% of business owners who are planning to retire say they have no retirement savings. It's all wrapped up in the business. So you've got to keep in mind that as you look at succession planning, it is a monetary event. It is an essential monetary event. And in that case, transferable assets, it takes time to make that happen and do it well. If you have competition at the time of sale, that will help increase the asset value. And you are going to be facing a shrinking pool of buyers and a growing pool of sellers over time. So right now, as I said before, the baby boomers, 72 to 54 in age, 66% of American businesses today are owned by baby boomers. Largest entrepreneurial group out there. The Gen X, which is a potential buyer group, they're the 42 to 53-year-olds. They are about half the size of the baby boom generation, and they are cautious as a group. I don't mean to make too many labels, but they are cautious as a group. They are pragmatic, they seek stability, and entrepreneurship may not be their logical thing. Gen Y, which comes after them, those are the millennials. They're 24 to 41-year-olds. They're tech savvy, they're sophisticated, they are more independent, more likely to be entrepreneurial, but right at this point in time, 80% stress that owning a business is too high a stress level for them to want to engage with. So you've got to really think about how you're going to create a business for them that can cause them to be successful, take advantage of their independence, and not raise their stress level in the process. So for those of you in the room who are actually engaged in thinking about succession planning, the timeline may be getting shorter for you. The sooner you can engage in activities related to that timeline, the better. And it's about getting more realistic about what you can actually do with the assets that you've worked all your life to build. So my question for anyone in this room who owns a business is, what's your plan? And with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. And I'm going to ask each of our panelists if they would be so kind as to introduce themselves. And I've asked them to each then tell a quick story about a successful transition that they have seen. I'm sorry? I'm getting hand motions in the back.
Place the mic back down.
Oh, I'm going to take it back over here because we're going to go over here. Is that okay? Okay, great, sorry. So I'm going to start with the gentleman to my right, Joseph Bowden.
Hi, I'm Joe Bowden. I am a tax partner with the accounting firm PKF O'Connor Davies. I'm in the commercial end of our practice, and I have clients that mostly are closely held businesses, and several